A very good morning to one and all. On the behalf of BM Girls College and Sitaram Devra Institute of Management Studies, I, Sumita Guha, take the privilege to extend the warm welcome to all of you on the third day of National Webinar Series on National Education Policy 2020, Prospects and Challenges in Higher Education. Today's webinar is on inclusivity and innovation, is being organized by Research Cell and the Innovation and Incubation Center in association with Internal Quality Assurance Cell, IQAC, of our college. We, as an institution, is extremely privileged and blessed to have constant support and encouragement from our management members. I would like to welcome Advocate Sushil Vyasji, President Marwari Sammelan, Sri Suresh Devraji, Honorable Secretary Marwari Sammelan, Sri Srikant Dalmiaji, Convener of BM Girls College and Trustee of Marwari Sammelan, Sri Vijay Singhalji, Convener of Sitaram Devra Institute of Management Studies, and the other management members without whose support it could not have been possible for us to conduct such a series of national webinars on National Education Policy 2020. We welcome you, sir. Today, we were so very fortunate to have with us Dr. Ashish Pant, Director, Innovation, Incubation, and Linkages, SNDT Women's University, Mumbai, and Dr. C.A. Ajit Joshi, Associate Professor, PTVS Institute of Management, as guest speakers of today. We welcome both of you, sir. I welcome the respected dignitaries from all over India, as well as outside India, principals of various colleges, faculty members of various colleges and universities, the academicians, and the students across India. I also welcome principal of BM Girls College and Sitaram Devra Institute of Management Studies, our source of inspiration, Dr. Santosh Kolkak, my fellow colleagues, all the non-teaching staffs, and our dear students. Before I proceed further, I would like to say a few words about our college, which was established in the year 1958 by Marwari Sammelan, one of the pioneer organizations for women education in Mumbai. We have arts, commerce, BMS, BCA, BAMM undergraduate courses, and economics and commerce postgraduate courses. Now, on the behalf of organizing team, I would like to request all the participants to follow certain code of conduct so that we can conduct this webinar smoothly. All the participants are hereby requested to keep their audios and videos off. If you have any question and you want to address to a particular speaker, you can write it down in the Google Meet chat box or the YouTube live streaming comment section along with the speaker's name. The feedback link will be provided only at the end of the session, that is after the national anthem. The feedback link will be provided on both Google Meet chat box as well as the YouTube live streaming comment section. And it will be valid up to 10 p.m. today. This is a proud moment for us to announce that though this is a national webinar, but we have received a number of registrations from outside India. Due to this ongoing pandemic, our institution has opted for this online platform for the dialogue to bring out a synthesis amongst experts across different disciplines to develop a clear understanding on National Education Policy 2020 and its possible short run as well as long run impact on higher education institutions in India. The National Education Policy intends to provide an overarching framework for inclusion in education. Even after 7 decades of the adoption of Constitution of India, unfortunately, our education is not inclusive. There are a large number of social and individual determinants that prevent an individual from accessing and participating in higher education. In Indian context, these circumstances are gender, caste, socioeconomic status, special needs, location of residence, etc. The inclusion in higher education demands that these circumstances should not obstruct the educational potential of an individual. The vision of national education policy is to improve the quality of education by giving an equal space to creativity and innovation so that India can become a vibrant knowledge economy. The national education policy emphasizes on the fact that the higher education must form the basis for knowledge creation and innovation so that India can become more innovative, progressive, and a prosperous nation. Today, we are here to be enriched on these aspects of National Education Policy 2020 with our eminent speakers who are experts in this field. We all look forward for an excellent session today. May I now request for the college prayer to be played. Over to the college prayer.
या कुन्देन्दुतुषारहारधवला या शुभ्रवस्त्रावृता या वीणावरदण्डमण्डितकरा या श्वेतपद्मासना या ब्रह्माच्युतशङ्कर प्रभृतिभिर्देवैः सदा वन्दिता सा मां पातु सरस्वती भगवती निःशेषजाड्यापहा गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरा गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। तू ही राम है तू रहीम है तू करीम कृष्ण खुदा हुआ तू ही वाहे गुरु तू ईशा मसीह हर नाम में तू समा रहा। सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामया सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मामृतङ्गमय। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः।
Our college is affiliated to SNTT Women's University. May I now request for the SNTT song to be played. I would like to request all the participants to rise while the SNTT song being played in to show our respect for Maharishi Karve founder of SNTT Women's University. Over to the university song.
संस्कृता श्री पराशक्ति स्वर हमारा है। संस्कृता श्री पराशक्ति स्वर हमारा है। विश्व है परिवार भारत घर हमारा है। विश्व है परिवार भारत घर हमारा है। हम नहीं है दीन कहता कौन हम अबला। है सबल संस्कृति हमारी हम सभी सबला। ज्योति से जगमग हुआ अंतर हमारा है। विश्व है परिवार भारत घर हमारा है। स्वप्न खाकर सी हुआ साकार है इसमें। महर्षि करवे तपस्या सार है इसमें। हम दिशाएं और ये दिनकर हमारा है। विश्व है परिवार भारत घर हमारा है। संस्कृता श्री पराशक्ति स्वर हमारा है। विश्व है परिवार भारत घर हमारा है। विश्व है परिवार भारत घर हमारा है।
May I now invite our principal, Dr. Santosh Kolkak, the epitome of our motivation, to deliver the keynote address. Over to you, madam.
Good morning and a warm welcome to you all. Respected members from Marwadi Sammelan, President Marwadi Sammelan, respected Sushil Vyasji, eminent speakers for today's webinar, Dr. Ashish Panath, Director, Innovation and Incubation and Linkages at SNDT Women's University, Professor Dr. Ajit Joshi from PTVA's Institute of Management Studies, Honorary Secretary of Marwadi Sammelan, respected Suresh Devraji, Convener of BM Ruya Girls College, Shri Shrikant Dalmiaji, Convener of Sitaram Devra Institute of Management Studies, Shri Vijay Kumar Singalji, all the other honorable management members, principals, our colleagues, teachers, researchers, scholars, and friends from various universities and institutions all over India, and teaching and non-teaching staff from our all the institutes of BM Ruya Girls College, Sitaram Devra Institute of Management Studies, our both school, dear alumni and dear students. We are overwhelmed to receive response from various institutes. Today, I once again welcome you all at the third webinar of the webinar series of New Education Policy 2020, Prospects and Challenges in Higher Education. Topic of today's webinar is Inclusivity and Innovation in Education, and this is organized by Research Cell and Innovation and Incubation Center of our institute under the aegis of Internal Quality Assurance Self of Marwadi Sammelan's BM Ruya Girls College and Sitaram Devra Institute of Management Studies. We all know how important is education in our life. Swami Vivekananda has said, we want the education by which character is formed, strength of mind is increased, the intellect is expanded, and by which one can stand on one's own feet. This is what Swamiji told us about education. There is a paradigm shift in every sector globally, largely taken over by massive developments in technology. Like other fields, experts in the field of education also feel that due to the scale and speed of evolution we are going through, most of the education given in schools and colleges and skills acquired worldwide today will not be useful in the coming years. While this is what the future looks like, our education system is struggling with age old problems of lack of reach, quality, poor learning outcomes, gaps between textbook teaching and real life vocations, huge imbalance in rural, urban, private, public educational sectors, and also the lack of professionalism. There are issues in pedagogy which encourage rote learning. Excessive and sometimes lethal competition of marks and ranks is also there. As we are unable to deal with these and other few drawbacks which dilute the essence of education by creating society which is unable to cope with the thinking skills of modern workplaces demand. Various research data show that we are incompatible at global stage because 21st century is era of globalization, liberalization, multiculturalism, and technology driven sciences where routine jobs will be automated. Therefore, we need individuals who can think critically, analyze the real life based problem instead of being replaced by algorithms. For this, higher education must aim to develop good, thoughtful, well rounded, and creative individuals to meet the requirements of.
Madam, your mic has got on mute. Please unmute.
Okay, sorry. Various research data have shown that we are incompatible at global stage because 21st century is era of globalization, liberalization, multiculturalism, and technology driven sciences where routine jobs will be automated. Therefore, we need individuals who think critically, analyze the real life based problems instead of being replaced by algorithms. For this, higher education must aim to develop good, thoughtful, well rounded, and creative individuals to meet the requirements of 21st century. Hence, these factors were challenging higher education leaders, faculty, and researchers to fundamentally rethink the nature and purpose of higher education and how it should be provided. As a result, some educators thought that higher education needs to be reconceptualized from a humanistic and human rights perspective. Professor Patrick Blessinger from New York University, Ekankshi Sengupta, and Shai Rishef in their article, The Shifting Paradigm of Higher Education, published on University World News, have mentioned that A paradigm shift is a radical change in the core concepts and practices of a given domain, discipline, or field. India introduced this paradigm shift in education through draft NEP 2020, which aims at comprehensively innovative and inclusive education. It proposes the revision and revamping of all aspects of the education structure, its regulation and governance to create a new system that is aligned with the aspirational goals of 21st century education while remaining consistent with the India's tradition and value systems. In the higher education sector, the draft policy restructuring of the higher education institutions, which are mainly placed under three categories, with the first primarily being focused on research, second, providing high quality teaching across disciplines with significant contribution to research, and the third, providing quality teaching focused on undergraduate education. The objective of the NEP is to transform the country into a flourishing knowledge society as well as a global knowledge superpower by transforming the school and higher education system into a system that emphasizes on minimizing rote learning and include 21st century skills such as creativity and critical thinking, even scientific temper, communication, collaboration, multilingualism, problem solving, ethics and social responsibility, humanitarian and constitutional values, digital literacy by use of technology, and philanthropic private and community participation and holistic approach while still recognizing education as a public service. Various surveys have concluded that respect and understanding grow when students of diverse abilities and backgrounds play, socialize, and learn together. Researchers have suggested that inclusive systems provide a better quality education for all children and are instrumental in changing discriminatory attitudes. Honorable Minister of Education, Dr. Ramesh Pokhriyalji Nishank, in his address mentioned that NEP 2020 aims to ensure equity and inclusion in and through education by addressing all forms of exclusion and marginalization, disparity, vulnerability, and inequality, discrimination towards economically and socially marginalized communities such as lower caste, tribal groups, etc. In education, access, participation, retention, and completion, and in learning outcomes, these issues will be taken consideration of. So the policy is designed to avoid segregation and isolation of ethnic and linguistic minorities. Those with disabilities and also those who face learning difficulties due to language barriers are at the risk of educational exclusion. That means if implemented properly, NEP 2020 will motivate students to learn more about the diverse culture of India, its knowledge system and tradition, and will also sensitize them on human values, empathy, tolerance, human rights, gender equity, gender equality, inclusion, and equity, which is need of the hour today. Thus, this policy has dreamed to ensure that it touches the life of each and every citizen, consistent with their ability to contribute to many growing developmental imperatives of this country on the one hand, and towards creating a just and equitable society on the other hand. It seems equity and inclusion is at the heart of NEP 2020. It shows commitment of present Prime Minister to revamp the rote learning-based education to experimental and skills-based education for all. There is a poet in Hindi, Nagarjun Baba we call him. He has said in his poem, I will not read the poem, I'll say what he says about it, is हमें योजनाओं पर योजनाएं मिलती रहती हैं, मगर क्या होगा, क्या फायदा जब तक योजनाएं हमारे देश के आम नागरिक तक न पहुंचे, उसका फायदा उनको न पहुंचे, उनको उसके लाभों के साथ आगे बढ़ने का अवसर न मिले, तब तक ऐसी योजनाओं का क्रियान्वयन जब तक ठीक से नहीं किया जाता, तब तक उसका कोई फायदा नहीं। वो कितनी भी अच्छी हो, पन्ने पर अच्छी हो, पर वो तभी सार्थक होंगी जब उसका फायदा देश के हर गांव शहर के आम नागरिक को भी पहुंचेगा। So though this education policy speaks of encouraging reason and critical thinking, campus activities, the real actions on the ground differ till today. That's why Nagarjun has said this. So the need for a comprehensive roadmap of implementation is must. If the policy will be implemented with good spirit and intentions, definitely it will bring change in educational sector with the aspiring goal of critically developed mind and knowledgeable society. That way, new education policy 2020 will turn out to be a historic effort not only in India but worldwide. तो भारत को फिर से विश्व गुरु बनाने का ये जो स्वप्न इस योजना में झलक रहा है, वो तभी साकार होगा जब हर स्टेक होल्डर, चाहे वो विद्यार्थी हो, अभिभावक हो, शिक्षक हो, सरकार हो, शिक्षा मंत्रालय हो, विभिन्न विभाग जब जुटकर, एकजुट होकर इसको सार्थक बनाने का प्रयास करेंगे, तभी यह सफल हो सकती है। और मैं सभी से आह्वान करती हूँ कि सभी इसमें अपने योगदान के लिए अपना अपना हिस्सा दें। बूंद बूंद से घड़ा बढ़ता है, तो हमें विश्व गुरु बनाने का, पुनः अपने स्वर्णिम भविष्य की ओर ले जाने का जो सपना देखा गया है, उसे पूरा करने के लिए आप सभी का सहयोग होगा, ऐसी मैं कामना करती हूँ। धन्यवाद, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
Thank you very much, Madam. The National Education Policy 2020 attempts to address inclusivity in higher education. This policy emphasizes on the structural change in the education system, which aims to make India the global knowledge superpower, ensuring inclusivity. Now, our session is on National Education Policy 2020, paradigm shift in the approach to education. And the resource person for this session is Dr. C.A. Ajit Joshi, Associate Professor, PTVS Institute of Management. May I now call upon Mrs. Maheshwari Murdeshwar, Lecturer, Junior College, to introduce Dr. C.A. Ajit Joshi. Over to you, Maheshwari.
Thank you, Sumita. Honorable members of Marwari Sammelan, respected Principal Ma'am, Shruti Ma'am, IQAC Coordinator Dr. Nuruzia Kazi, and her efficient teammates, Namaskar everyone. Good afternoon to one and all. I welcome both our YouTube participants as well as Google Meet audience. Friends, we have weathered one of the most significant events in global history. The onslaught of coronavirus has taught us new ways of living and doing things. But does a changing situation bring about changing people? What changes people and make them relevant is their ability to adapt to the new realities of life, which is aptly put in Charles Darwin theory, Origin of the Species. It is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change. It is the one that is most adaptable to change. And I believe that when the change occurs, it makes way for innovation. As the world is changing, our education system cannot remain unaffected nor function in isolation. Innovative way of teaching and learning means better way of learning and teaching. In this context, it is important to understand NEP 2020, which focuses on primary education and higher education. Primary education and higher education. In order to understand the nuances of education policy in detail, we have two esteemed resource persons amongst us for guidance. In this third series of national webinar on National Education Policy 2020, Prospects and Challenges in Higher Education, which focuses on inclusivity and innovation in education, I take this opportunity to introduce our first speaker. Honorable member of the task force appointed by Government of Maharashtra for the implementation of National Education Policy 2020. Associate Professor at Parle Tilak Vidyalaya Association, Institute of Management, Honorable Dr. C.A. Joshi, who is preparing the youth in nation building. Welcome, sir. His works include, as a practice, he is practicing a chartered accountant with wide experience in compliance, project consultancy, and management monitoring. He is practicing in all types of financial compliances such as IT, GST, and specific focus on guidance to startups. He is the author of the book Financial Literacy and Women Empowerment, titled Vijecha Hati Batyachi Dor, sponsored by Maharashtra State Commission for Women. He has submitted several research papers on topics such as fair value accounting, electoral success of women candidates, women self-help groups, and Binish model. So he is also coordinator of the first ever GST training course run by Management Institute with GST Department, Government of Maharashtra as knowledge partner. Sir has also co-authored the book titled Fair Value Accounting, Challenges and Perceptions based on doctoral thesis. A single window financial service resource that would integrate bookkeeping, reporting, and planning, and release the entrepreneur from the course of non-core activities and help business focus on value maximization. He is a financial counselor who believes in empowering you to deal with your money employees. He is also author of a book on financial literacy and revenue awareness economics. We are highly privileged by your presence, sir. Dr. Joshi will.
I'm definitely grateful to the organizers for this opportunity to talk to you all. We all know, we all are in the education sector, and we all know that NEP 2020 is a milestone in probably it's a once in a lifetime event for all of us. The last time there was paradigm shift or there was a restructuring of education sector, it was I think in 86, 87. So that was almost like 30 years back, 35 years back. And now what is happening right now, I'm sure is going to stay here for another 50 years at least. And so in that sense, we are doing something phenomenally different, something new. Of course, on the basis of what already exists, but then this whole approach is different. Before I go further, let me give you a disclaimer. NEP 2020 is really one of the most fantastic documents that one can come across. There is no doubt on that. However, it is a policy without any implementation plan as of now. Of course, implementation plans are being built. We all know that higher education falls in a concurrent list, and most of the time state governments have more responsibility of handling it. In fact, school education is entirely within state government's purview, and even in case of higher education, considerable part is managed by state government. And therefore, at least in Maharashtra, the government and Minister for Education, Higher Education, Uday Samanji has appointed this particular task force of which Dr. Raghunath Mashelkar is chairperson, and I am privileged to be member of that task force. So, really speaking, going further in next 5 to 10 years, the NEP is going to happen. Though the NEP is adopted, accepted, propagated last few months, NEP hasn't happened yet. National Education Policy hasn't happened yet. It is just there. But it will happen over the next 5 to 10 years when actually that NEP will happen. So these next 5 to 10 years are extremely crucial for our future. For the future of education sector, for the future of every single educational institution, for all of us as individuals, we do have a thought of our own careers, our own progress charts, and of course, last but most importantly, it will be very important for the students. So in these next 5 to 10 years, as this transformation will happen, we will have to think how we are going to dovetail, how we are going to flow with this current. And when we think of that, I'm going to share my PPT here. Just request you to give me a second. Can I share the PPT, organizers? It looks like I'm not able to. Yeah, I think I will be able to.
You can share.
Yeah, I can share. Sorry. Yeah. So, in today's session, I am not going to speak much about the legal provisions, how restructuring is going to happen, what should you do, what should be workforce, and so on and so on. I mean, I'm not going to talk from administrative perspective a lot because, frankly speaking, it's not available. We are still in the process. As I said, it's still happening. So there are a lot of questions, even to my mind and to the minds of everyone, which may not be solved today, right now here, but which will be solved over the next few years. And therefore, when I was talking to organizers, I specifically told them that what I want to talk about is the shift in approach to education. The whole, though as I said in 86, 87, we did some restructuring. Prior to that, 74, we did some restructuring and so on and so forth. The approach to education that we have has remained more or less same ever since Macaulay introduced modern education to Indians long back in 19th century. And whether under British government, subsequently under Indian governments, union governments, state governments, the approach to education has unfortunately not changed as much as it should have been. We all know very well that British Empire introduced the education because they wanted to create the raw material for their system, and that is clerks. Administrative people. And I don't think we have changed a lot from that particular scenario. And that is why when I was talking to organizers, I insisted that I would like to talk about how the approach has to be different. So when we start talking about NEP and all that, what is education all about? Let us look at NEP 2020. What does it say? Very first line, and in fact, I would say, the first line of NEP 2020, really speaking, completes it. Even if they would have written the first line and stopped the policy then and there, it would have meant a lot. What does it say about education? It says education has 3 targets. The first one is achieving full human potential, and this word full human potential is very, very important. We are going to go back to it again and again. Equitable and just society and nation building, or promoting national development. These are the 3 things that NEP 2020 is talking about. And I believe these are the 3. I'm sorry, mic is on. Yeah, thank you. So these are the 3 most important things as a matter of approach that we have to remember. Because unfortunately, I can say this. This is somewhat bleak truth, somewhat hard truth. But the fact is, our approach is absolutely not at all focused on either of these 3 things as of now. Excuse me. Yeah, in the contemporary education. So first of all, let's understand what are these 3 things. And, there are a lot of lofty words here. There is a lot of good phrases and jargon and terminology, but we have to translate it for an ordinary teacher or a professor or a principal or a director or those who are running the institutions. They have to get it translated to what they have actually to do on the ground while functioning in their respective roles. And so let us translate this. What is achieving full human potential? See, every individual has various types of potentials. Our education does not give justice to it. You have physiological potential. Someone can run fast. Someone has amazing vocal, like singing capabilities. Someone can throw very well. And, all of this, our body has different potentials. Uh, Ask ourselves, those of you who are into school or even college education, are we giving justice to even the human body, the body of the student? You will realize absolutely not. The only thing that we are concerned about, there is a hard disk in our brain. Computer mein hard disk ka kaam kya hai? It's storing the data. What we are concerned about, that part of our brain, because next potential is mental potential. Mental potential is as well of various types. So there can be someone is fantastic with numbers, someone can draw beautiful pictures, someone can design clothes, and so on and so forth. But all that we are focused about is only one part of our mental capacity, and that is hard disk, where the data gets stored. We are concerned only about the fact whether the student is storing that data and retrieving it at the time of examination or not. That is the only potential that we are, and associated with that, then we believe that handwriting should be beautiful, and then you should be able to read fast, and you should be able to write fast, and you should write 10 pages for 5-mark question, and so on and so forth, because we are only focused on that part of human potential. Yes, that is human potential, but beyond that, there is, and that's why, in NEP, the word full human potential, not just one part. Is our education focused about it? Every teacher, every professor, every organization, institution, management can ask himself, herself, itself, am I focused on the entire human potential of my student? Am I focused on the complete potential of my student? If not, then the way forward is very clear, that we can come up with those things which will give justice to this potential, shape up these potentials. And that is very, very important thing, because unless, I don't know how many of you read Harry Potter. I am a great fan of Harry Potter. I believe someone in education must read Harry Potter, because Harry Potter is all about education. And I'm talking about reading, not watching the movies. So in Harry Potter, the famous principal of Wizard School, Dumbledore, has a wonderful quote. A lot of things, a lot of quotations from Harry Potter I love. But in one of those quotes, he says to Harry, he says, Harry, you are not what you are able to do. You are not defined by your abilities. You are defined by your choices. Human potential are the abilities. It is education's job to define or to shape up those abilities by the right choices. The students or the children, the youth, the future of this country should be able to make right choices to give justice to their abilities, to their potential. For that, what can we do? Fine, what government tells us, curriculum, this, that. Now, government is also speaking this language. That is very interesting and important. But even if we keep it aside, can we go beyond that? And can we do something to give justice to this potential? I have a suggestion that everybody of you take out a list of 100 people, 100 celebrities or 100 people who have achieved something in their life, political, business community, actors, whatever field, NGOs. Make a list of 100 people, and you will realize that at least 90 people, 90% of the people, or 90 persons out of that list hail from a background which is not super rich, which is not economically abundant. In fact, you will realize that 30 to 40 of them have come from quite challenging background, and their education became possible not because of their families, but because of something else. It may be government grant, it may be scholarship, it may be somebody charitable who is giving money, it may be any of these, it may be friends, but they have come up from a very hard economic background, and they still make to your list of 100 most successful people. What it tells us is there is no correlation between the economic resources that you have, heredity that you have, caste and religion and linguistic community that you belong to, and your success. The success is wealth neutral, the success is gender neutral, the success is caste and religion neutral. And that is where equitable and just society comes. So it is a job of education to pick up these people, these children, these students from different stratas of society, economic stratas, social stratas, cultural stratas, linguistic stratas, to pick them up from there, make sure that their abilities are given chance to, scope to, make sure that they get the opportunity to succeed. And that is the only way that society can be built. You will realize there is no other way. If you will study the fall of empires, if you study the fall of Roman Empire, if you will study the fall of British Empire, you will realize that at the fall of every empire, at the fall of every civilization, the education has got restricted to a particular community, a particular class of the society, and that has led to the fall of the society. The society can progress only when you give opportunity to every strata of the society. So that is the second most important part. And the last part is promoting national development. See, nobody sets out, or let's say 1 in 1,000 might be an exception, but 999 people do not set out in their life and say, come on, I'm going to create the nation. No, I'm going to serve the nation. No, this is all jargon. This is all idealistic talk. But if every individual is successful, if every individual is efficient, if every individual is a good civilized citizen of our country, only then the nation development is possible. And that is again is the responsibility of education. So look here, NEP 2020 is talking the language which so far hitherto education system was not talking this language. Everybody else was talking this language. Now even government is willing to talk this language. Now the onus is upon us. The responsibility is upon us. Are we going to do all of these things? And yes, are they just some lofty words? No, you can do it. You can ask yourself, how many students of economically weaker section am I helping? Am I trying to understand their background, their problems, their issues, and am I trying to give justice to them? Again, as a professor, as a principal, as an institution runner, whoever you might be, you have this opportunity to give maximum opportunities to maximum people. So all of this is what I will say. This first slide, I will say this is a spirit of NEP. This is a spirit of good education. And when we speak about change in approach, believe me, it's a somewhat harsh thing probably to say, but we were never focused about all these principles in our educational system. It is not responsibility or blame of one institution or the other. It is the blame or rot in the system as a whole. So if we want to change the system, these are the areas where we need to focus. Now, I'm not going to speak a lot about structural changes because they are all available. I'm sure NEP 2020, many of you might have read and you all are aware. I'll just quickly touch upon them. In school, actually, my focus is more on higher education, but I was told that I should touch upon school education as well. I will just reiterate this point that the foundation is very, very important. Unfortunately, in our educational system, we say, when do we get serious about the studies of our children? When the children goes to grade 9 and 10. That is an absolutely wrong approach. The focus is on the age of group of 3 to 6 and 6 to 8, where the child learns through repetition, the child learns through his or her surrounding, the child learns through how its parents behave, teachers behave, what is the environment that the school is providing. All of these things are learnings, and that is the most important part. And again, in 6 to 8, the child has to be literate in the sense he or she should be able to write. And numeracy. Numeracy means basic and good understanding of numbers. Believe me, I'm teaching in a management college, and not just in mine, but across the board when we share the notes, this is the common experience that the students who have graduated are unable to handle simple mathematical computations. Maths is the biggest enemy of the students in their school life and subsequently in their college life as well. We have to address this. This is a very important part. But as I understand that this is not about, I'm not going to dwell a lot about school education. So I'll just show you how the structure is changed. The change is not very big. Only thing is the junior college is now connected with the school, that now it has become secondary in school hierarchy. Very important part is learning of the teacher. Believe me, the society changing so dramatically and drastically in last 15, 20 years. That if you are about 25, about 30, and sure I am one of them, so I'm not exactly blaming somebody else. But then please remember that the world has changed around us. And if we have not learned how it has changed, if we have not focused how it has changed, then really speaking, it's going to be difficult for us. So continuous learning of teacher is very, very important. And as I said, there is not a great structural change in school education, but yes, the approach has changed. And let me reiterate and get over with this slide that the very, very great importance is given to the foundational years, 3 to 6 and 6 to 8. are going to be very important years in most of the developed economies. The salaries at foundational years are higher than those at middle or secondary years. That is something worth noting. So this is very, very important in school education. Now let's look at structural changes in higher education. Right now, what sort of structure we have, we all know it very well. In the present structure, there are huge universities. The concept of university in India is so different from the concept in West that whenever we interact with international teachers or students, somebody from education sector, and when we tell them that we have something called University of Mumbai with about 1,000 colleges and maybe a million or 2 million students, then they get boggled. They can't imagine this particular type of university. But that is the structure that we have a university which is, of course, SNDT is not as large, but even SNDT is a substantially big lot bigger than any Western university. And likewise, we have maybe 20, 25 big universities in the state of Maharashtra. Each one of them have lakhs of students affiliated to it, hundreds of colleges affiliated to it. And we have this stream-wise college where the college can be only commerce or only arts. We also have arts, science, and commerce colleges. But even though we have arts, science, and commerce colleges, these three streams within the college are very clearly segregated. That is how we have it. So these are the colleges we have. And of course, after in 1983, government of Maharashtra started welcoming private education. In 90s and 2000 era, the private education flourished in Maharashtra, and now we have some of the autonomous universities or deemed to be universities in state of Maharashtra. This is our existing structure as we know it. However, that structure is expected to undergo big change. And from the existing structure, we are required to create three types of different HEIs. HEIs is, I'm sorry, again, there is some, hello? Yeah, thank you. So HEIs are higher education institution, and they are supposed to be of three types. What we have to understand is none of these three types is expected to have lakhs of students. All the three types individually are supposed to have smaller number of students and smaller number of geographical presence. Today, Mumbai University itself has geographical presence from Dahanu in the north to Sindhudurg in the south. And similarly, other universities have their respective huge geographical areas. But again, in case of NEP 2020, they are expecting relatively smaller geographies, lesser number of students, and three types. What are those three types? As you can see here, teaching intensive universities, research intensive universities. So a set of university which will be focused on giving various degrees and various graduate, postgraduate courses, and where students will get qualifications, that is teaching intensive. Research intensive universities. Now, what is research intensive is where the students, their focus is supposed to be on research, which will be important for the development of various sciences, which will be important for development of society, public policy making, industrial development, corporate research. All these things are supposed to happen in research intensive universities. And somewhat similar on the lines of teaching intensive universities, but little below that is called autonomous degree granting college, where the present college system will remain, but they will be empowered to grant their own degrees, and autonomous they will be in their functioning. How is it going to happen? From existing to these three, how are we going to go? It is based on accreditation. Believe me, accreditation is going to be keyword. I have myself participated in NAC and NBA accreditation, and I can tell you with confidence that accreditation will now onwards govern your. I'm really sorry. What's happening? Hello. Am I audible?
Mr. Yes, sir. Mr. Sriharan, kindly don't unmute yourself again and again. It is disturbing.
Yeah, sorry to call out. Anyway, so I will go ahead with what I was talking. Accreditation is going to govern the way you run your organization, because the route of existing structure to these new structure, that route is going to go through accreditation. And so I would suggest very strongly to every single college or management institute that they should go for, not only, see, most of them might have gone for accreditation already, but they should make accreditation as a kind of soul of their organization, their soul, or a better word, I would say, the roadmap for their progress. They should ask themselves what all are the criteria, because I'm sure those of you who have gone through NAC or NBA will know that accreditation process covers everything in the college, ranging from infrastructure, assessment process, various new activities, teaching, learning, staff development, student development, everything is covered under accreditation. So, and I will appreciate this effort on part of Union Ministry, that now the accreditation is more and more